I had a VC reach out to us because like he signed his lease agreement on Agree and was like, "Hey, like what is this?" And then like pinged us. Tech goes through these like bundling and unbundling phases. Right now, we're living in a very unbundled environment where, you have companies that are using contracting software. You have companies that are using invoicing software, but those two systems just don't talk to each other, right? We describe this as almost like the FedEx or UPS tracking, where it's like you should see where your money is at every single step along the way, almost to the level of like, hey, your package is like 2 stops away. Like we want to be able to do the same thing with your money.
Accounting software, I don't think is like known generally for design and attention to detail.
Feels like a breath of fresh air when you're using the product.
Welcome to Tech Finance. I'm your host, Sasha Orloff, repeat founder and current CEO of Puzzle, and self-professed finance nerd. On this show, we dive into the pulse of B2B fintech, from newly funded startups transforming the office of the CFO to major industry shifts, deals, and partnerships that are reshaping how we think about finance. You'll hear the most important developments, essential analysis, and of course, AI innovations. This show is brought to you by Puzzle and the Turpentine Podcast Network. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to season 2 of the podcast. Something that I am personally excited about, not surprising, accounting software and improving accounting with better software. So today is a fun episode. We're going to get to talk with Will Hubbard. And if you haven't heard of Agree, you are about to, and get ready. So if you happen to be in San Francisco, you will have potentially noticed that Agree has been cleaning up the streets of San Francisco by power washing the dirty San Francisco streets with these pithy little like ads, which is super fun. And so we were originally sort of introduced from Noah Mayu's an investor from S32. What's up, Noah? Shout out. And she has just been a fan. And I was like, listen, I don't know. We'll meet Paige from my team, and instantly fell in love. And we have been sending out Agree contracts left and right. I think we've been a big fan. I tweeted out how amazing you were. And this is season 2 is about accounting software. And here we are. So I'm excited to welcome you to the show and let you share the story. Welcome, Will.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Like huge fans of you and Puzzle as well.
Cool. Well, for those of you listening that are just hearing about Agree, Will, give us the quick pitch. What are you building and who's it for?
Yeah, great question. So we're basically a free version of DocuSign, but we integrate invoicing, billing, payments all into the platform. So we're an all-in-one contracting and invoicing platform. So you can send out a contract for signature, you can send out an invoice for payment, but kind of the magical thing is when you combine the two together.
Nice. And so prior to this, you were GP at Adventure Fund. What was the thing that led you to the insight of like, this is the thing that I want to do next?
Yeah, so we started Adventure Fund sort of going into the pandemic. And so we're a small venture capital fund. Like we write like 100K to 500K checks in early stage companies. And initially, like the initial idea for Agree started as outbound fund thesis. Like I was trying to find somebody building this to go and give them money and couldn't. And basically like the business model of all the companies that are building in the space, which is just like charge for e-signature, which I don't think makes a heck of a lot of sense in 2025, right? Like you have DocuSign, they're kind of the Kleenex of the space. There's a million alternatives and they're all competing with one another just marginally on price. And so our perspective is like, hey, that's silly. Give away e-signature completely for free. And for us, it's basically a wedge, right? Because we aim to be like a B2B payments company. And by uploading a contract, if there's a payment information associated with it, we can automatically generate an invoice for you. So for us, like e-signature is just a wedge to the end thing, which is invoicing, rather than just like, the solution all on its own.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for the listeners because they're just going to have to hear me like fanboy about this all the time. It's not just a free version of DocuSign. It's just so much more delightful to use. Like just as a user and a personal fan myself, just the experience on mobile, on browser, it's just easy and seamless. It makes it fun. And so much as a user is like your contracts as like partnerships in BD or sales, like you are working your tail off, like trying to get these contracts, trying to get your goods and services into other people's hands, trying to align and create value for customers. And then you just go into some of these other e-signs and it's just this like kind of painful, boring experience. I just have to say, of anything else, it just makes it delightful. It's this moment of happiness. And then you just have this piece of software that is like cumbersome and like, ugh. And like Agree just makes it just so, it makes it like a delightful experience. If you can say e-sign and delightful in the same sentence. I think you guys have like gotten close to this.
I love that. That's like the highest form of product feedback I can get is like one, yeah, it's not just free, but it's also better, right? Like it's joyful to use. I'm a big believer like when creating products, it's like sort of the opposite of like death by a thousand paper cuts. It's like success by like whatever the opposite of a paper cut is, where it's like these little joyful moments that in the aggregate like stack up and just create an overall better experience.
You should need grit to like sign a contract in
Yeah.
your like user experience.
I mean, all of these solutions, like, they were created, like, 10, 20 years ago, like, I have respect for what people built back in the day, but, they're, like, they're looking pretty and feeling pretty long in the tooth at this point.
Yeah, I felt a similar like vibe with linear when it first started is like what you're building and how you're doing it is like it's this like hard complicated experience. You want to feel really proud of these moments and excited about these moments. And I felt like linear gave this like simplistic delightful moment in this thing that just didn't need to be so like tedious and like cumbersome. How do you guys think about design at Agree? Because that's I know it's like you're building a future B2B payments company. You're taking on a giant like QuickBooks, but like this is accounting software. I don't think is like known generally for design and attention to detail.
Yeah, so all credit goes to 2 of my co-founders here, Marty and Mike. They both, like, started their careers as designers. So, like, from
Ah,
the start, like, design is just baked into the foundations of everything that we do. And to your point, it's like, "Hey, you just got a contract signed." That should be a joyful experience. "Hey, you just got an invoice paid." Like, that should be this amazing sort of, like, joyful, "You got paid," like, "You made it," like, experience. And so we really just try to lean into that, like, wherever we possibly can.
so we got to this place. You guys have a company. You've made this delightful signature. You've added payments mechanism into this thing.
Yeah.
Is there like a why right now is the right aside from like this just didn't exist and it should? Like, what is the why now in your mind?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think when companies like DocuSign were started or Bill.com, on the invoicing side, that was when like putting like a signature online was like a new sort of modern novel thing, or putting an invoice online was this new like kind of innovative thing. But obviously, like 20 years later, like it's sort of table stakes. And so my take is like, tech goes through these like bundling and unbundling phases. And right now, I think like we're living in like a very unbundled environment where you have companies that are using contracting software, you have companies that are using invoicing software, but like by and large, those two systems just don't talk to each other, right? Like after a contract gets signed, somebody on like your team, whether that's a salesperson, a finance person, or even like the founder, is copying and pasting details into invoicing software. And like humans are fallible, right? Like they get the details wrong, they forget to send it out, they forget to follow up. And that's just like, part of being a human, right? But these systems don't talk to each other and it's not automated. And so like for us, like a big part of the why now is we're bundling these two together, right? Like all in one contracting and invoicing. It's sort of like a tricky thing to do because like there's basically two companies that we're trying to build at once. And I think a big part of like why we're able to do this is just like speed of execution. Like we use like a whole bunch of different like AI enabled like software tools to basically help us code faster. And that like really helps us to like get things out the door as an all-in-one company like more quickly. So I think that is like part of the why now. And yeah, it's just one of those things where we have to be very guarded of our product roadmap because there's always the next thing to build. And so it's just a matter of like, okay, staging, like what do we want to build and when, and just making sure that the team is firing on all cylinders to get, product features out the door as quickly as possible.
What were the other things that you sort of were concepting when you thought, all right, the B2B payments with invoicing and free e-sign as the right wedge? The TV show How I Met Your Mother. And there's this episode that I can never like forget. It's called like the glass shattering moment. It's like there's these things where once you see it and once you hear it, it feels so damn obvious, like in hindsight, but it just didn't exist, at least in a mechanism that it is today. And so I'm wondering when you guys were like approaching the market, were there other things that you thought of? Because sometimes obvious ideas like they're there for the taking there, but it doesn't agree didn't exist before.
Yeah, I love this question. It's actually the most like common pushback that we got when we went out to raise our first couple rounds, which is like, hey, why doesn't this exist yet? Like this seems like it's almost like people are like getting tripped up. They're like, this is such an obvious thing that should exist. Like clearly it must. And then like, you'd see people searching around and like there's point solutions, here and there, but like by and large it didn't. And so for us, it just seemed like something that was so intuitive to combine. It's like, hey, like contracts and payments should be together. But in terms of like what we were building, we try to like reimagine the experience, right? Where it's like, hey, you sign a contract and then like, currently like you get like a separate email that says like, hey, you have an invoice to pay. But like if we know that that payment is due immediately upon signing, we should just like redirect you straight to the payment page and it should be baked into the platform. Another thing that feels like very obvious to me that is commonplace today that just sort of blows my mind is that when people need, a high value invoice paid, they send out their wiring information in plain text in a PDF over an email. It's like, hey, here's my account number, here's my routing number, like please don't do anything with this, future hackers. And it just blows my mind that that is how the entire industry operates today. Like they're even putting it in the invoice itself. And so for us, things like virtual account and routing numbers start to make a lot of sense because one, like on a per customer level, like it's keeping security much higher, right? Like we're not actually exposing your true underlying banking information. But two, it just like opens up things down the line for us, right? Where it's like, hey, like if money is flowing through this virtual account and routing number, like we still see like when a payment has been made. It's not this like black box experience of like, hey, I think my customer submitted a payment, but I'm just waiting for it to land and I'm sort of in this gray zone. Like we describe this as almost like the FedEx or UPS tracking, where it's like you should see where your money is at every single step along the way, like almost to the level of like, hey, your package is like 2 stops away. Like we want to be able to do the same thing with your money.
When you can bring sort of thoughtfulness to all of these little steps along the way and make them each discrete, you could get these extra valuable things. I think a lot of also the power, what's immediately coming to my mind is the word like reconciliation. Like reconciling your revenue to cash is not only so annoyingly painful and complicated, unless you're like a SaaS business on Stripe, which is like easy because you just have these like monthly transactions, but these like some of these complicated contracts, how far they paid. And I have continued like nightmares, frustrations personally, and then from all the interviews of like, what is the two of the most like serious, intense debates is between your sales team and your finance team of like, we sold all this stuff. It's like, well, but this is the cash that I'm seeing in the bank account. If you can actually like bridge that workflow together, then everybody could just have a first principles discussion about like the reality and the state of your business. Was this just a natural evolution or was this intentional from the get-go?
No, I mean, I think it's been intentional from the get-go and you're obviously spot on. Like I'm sure you live and breathe this like every day as the CEO of Puzzle. But no, for us, it just felt like such a natural evolution, right? Where it's like, hey, if we have all the context of the contract and we also have all the context of the invoice, right? Like we can provide like value that's like on top of the, like either of those two things on their own, right? Whether that's for the sales team, whether that's for the finance team, whether that's for the founder that's looking to have better revenue reconciliation, but also better revenue forecasting, right? Like if we can look at all your contracts and sort of see like, hey, like if you modify like, the discount rate from like 15% to 20%, does that speed up or, decrease, deal velocity? And then like, hey, you have like so many outstanding invoices based on like the types of customers and then your average payment rate, over the last 60 days, we forecast like your revenue is going to be at, this, for the next 60 days in a much more sort of accurate, sort of like quick way.
Hey, we'll get back to the conversation in a moment after a word from our sponsors. All right. One of my favorite tools that I use and we use is Notion. Notion is used by thousands of startups around the world as their connected workspace for everything from engineering specs to new hire onboarding to fundraising. Notion has a special offer for listeners. 6 months of free Notion with unlimited AI, value of over $6,000. So you can access the limitless power of AI right inside of Notion to build and scale your company and team with one tool. Get 6 months free of Notion with unlimited AI, along with custom templates when you apply for notion.com/startups/puzzle. Once again, that's notion.com/startups/puzzle. Go for it. There's a shift happening today in accounting. Startups aren't just building products faster, they're rethinking how they run their business too. Accounting shouldn't be stuck in the past. Puzzle is leading a new movement with an AI-first ledger built for speed, automation, and real-time decision-making. No more waiting for month end, no more manual reconciliations, just financials that keep up with you. The future of accounting isn't spreadsheets, it's AI-driven, intuitive, and built for the next generation of companies. Join the movement today at puzzle.io and take control of your future.
So I know you guys are like iterating quickly and the product is constantly getting better.
Yeah.
Is there a personal favorite feature of yours in Agree today?
Oh man, that's a tough question because they're all so near and dear to my heart. I would say one thing that we've built in that just people really seem to love is just like the tracking element where it's like we show you every single step along the way, like, hey, this payment link was viewed, like, and maybe it was viewed 3 times, and then we provide automated reminders on the platform so you don't have to like be the villain basically and remind your customer like, hey, you have a past due invoice. But let's say if you've seen them, look at the payment link 3 times, like you can give them a gentle nudge and reminder as well. So it's just in the aggregate, just like little things like that along the way. Another feature, and this is just sort of stream of consciousness off the top of my head that we built, is like the revision functionality on the e-signature side, where on existing platforms today, like if you need to make a change, you basically need to go back to Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever you're using, make the change, re-PDF it, re-upload it. You're basically starting the whole process over again. And on Agree, if you need to make a change, like we built in like a full-blown document editor right onto the platform. And so you can just click revise, make the change and resend. It's like it takes a matter of seconds rather than a matter of minutes. And seconds versus minutes might not sound like, too huge of a difference, but it's just one of those things where it feels like a breath of fresh air when you're using the product.
Yeah. I'm reminded, so my CTO and co-founder here at Puzzle was the VP Finance and CTO of the remittance company Zoom. And they were really sort of the first kind of mobile native remittance company. And I remember one of their killer features was when somebody picked up the remittance back at home, they just sent you a text message saying money was delivered. And that was such a killer feature against like the old school Western Union where you would go and give money and then you would just like hope it got there. You would have no idea. You're sending money to your parents, you're sending money to your siblings, to your family back at home. And just like the simple idea of just confirmations around there was like this really powerful feature. And so I love it. Is there anything else? Like one of the fun parts about company building, I think, is you start a company or you get obsessed about an idea and you have this like assumption or preconceived notion. And then, something else happens. Were there any big surprises either in the product development that come to mind?
A couple. I think one that like we're seeing that sort of took me by surprise is just how many people are using us for subscriptions. Because I kind of thought like, hey, like sales-led companies, they're signing a contract, it'd be sort of like these big one-time sort of lumpy payments, and that's only about half of what we do. The other half is like, hey, I'm sending you a contract, and it's I need to get paid $5,000 every single month, for the next however many years, and like we fully support that. We have both like subscriptions with like auto charge, but also just recurring invoices. So if they want to go in and manually pay each time, they can do that too. And I just didn't expect so many people to be using that. I think that's one thing. And then the other thing that I'll say is just like, I always sort of knew this would be the case. Like, AI assisted coding tools are getting so good, but I was DMing with one of our engineers the other day, and he sent me like prototype of a feature that's about to be launched. And I was like, how did you build this so quickly? It took him like 2 weeks to build something that honest to God, I thought would take like at least 2 months to build. And he built it in 2 weeks. And he's like, oh man, like it's like we're using Claude for everything. And apparently like if you establish the coding base like well enough, like the AI on top of the coding base that you've already sort of curated just like allows you to move way quicker. If you try and start from scratch with it, like it doesn't do as good of a job. But like if you have like high quality source code that you have written and then you ask it to come over on top of it, then it just like knocks it out of the park. That surprised me is like I knew like our product development would be like, AI assisted to an extent. I just didn't realize like how much quicker it would allow us to move.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a fun time to be building right now. So, not surprising when you have a beautiful product that is catching on and so delightful to use. And actually you get this like nice viral efficient, because like if I'm sending a contract,
that's right.
We sent out 60 contracts in the last 6 weeks, all with Agree. And like, then everybody on the other side is like, what is this? And you give them this like really delightful experience. You get the spread. So not surprising, investors took notice. You have software, you have payments, you have this virality component. So congrats on the recent round. Tell us a little bit more about how that came together.
Yeah, no. So Pelion, Tyler over at Pelion just led the round. We raised 7.2 million seed round. Before that, we raised a 3 million pre-seed round. I was led by Sheil over at Better Tomorrow Ventures. So love both of them. And we have a whole bunch of great investors that are supporting us. But to your point earlier, there's this just beautiful viral effect to the product where it's like of all the people that get sent a contract to sign, a certain percentage are going to start sending and signing contracts themselves, right? And like the K factor is even higher when there's like multiple signatories per contract. And so we have like almost like 40,000 users at this point. At the start of the year, it was 10,000, and we only launched our product back in last September. So it was zero then. So like on a really nice growth clip. And I think like that can only happen with like a viral product, right? And I think another big component to this is just having a great domain. So our domain is just agree.com. And for us, that was so important because it inspires trust, right? Like we are dealing with two of the highest trust things that you can possibly imagine. It's like legal docs with payments associated with them. And so like just having a great domain name was a must for us. But it also just like I think helps us tap into this viral effect where people use the product, they have a good experience, they see the domain name, they naturally get curious and they go, hey, what is this like product that I haven't heard of before? Like I want to go and try and use this. And so that's also just been just a total like force multiplier for us as well.
One of my biggest stressful sort of things that drive me crazy, aside from booking airline tickets, which I can defer to my wife, is naming companies. Tell us a little bit about the story of agree.com.
Oh man. Yeah. So again, back when sort of running the fund, looking for this to be built, I think better when I'm building websites, right? And so I knew that I wanted to name this Agree. And so I bought like a whole bunch of different versions of something agree.com and put together sort of like website. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this feels like a company that should exist. You know, I'm like brainstorming sort of in real time. But, you know, obviously agree.com is the domain, like we knew like we needed a good domain. And so Marty, my co-founder, he's also just a big domainer. So he owns marty.com. And so we go to the previous owner of agree.com and it's being used, you know, it's active, but we noticed the footer is out of date. And so we're like, okay, like maybe it's not as active and maybe he'd be willing to, you know, part with it for the right price. And so we go and we look up this company and we find the LLC. We look up the LLC and we find like the owner, and then we look up this owner on LinkedIn, and then we find out, okay, cool, like we found him. And so we didn't go through a domain broker or anything like that. Like we just shot him a cold DM, and you know it took like 4 or 5 months of negotiating. We got over the finish line, but for us, like we knew we just wanted agree.com. It just perfectly encapsulates what we're doing, right? And then I also think there's just this subtle thing where it's a friendly sounding company name where if you get sent a contract to sign on agree.com, I don't know how much of this is real or in my head, but maybe there's a certain percentage of you that's a little more likely to agree and sign and pay just because, you know, it's friendly sounding and it makes you feel like, hey, I want to work with these guys.
Yeah, I am no offense to an incredibly obviously amazing company, publicly traded company worth this, but like DocuSign does not inspire like happiness and friendliness and experience. It feels like something formal that your lawyer sent to you and you're like begrudgingly going to like figure out how to click through. Also, if you're DocuSign, you're listening, I'm sorry, but like, can you just, why do you have to ask me if I want a mobile view when I'm on my mobile phone? Of course I do. Like, can you not figure this out? It's like 2025. Let's go. I remember when we were spinning up what's now known as Mission Lane, and it was the credit card division of the last company, and we just could not agree on a name. We could not agree on a name. And we had to come up with a name. We were in Florida at FIS offices, and we had to literally come up with a name on the spot. And we were debating and arguing with success. And we went to a bar and we were like drinking and we couldn't figure out the name. And at literally the bar closed, we went home. We couldn't come to an alignment, and we called it just L. That was it. Terrible name. L. And then eventually we ran it as Mission Lane. That was it. But I love that, like, all right, Agree is the name. We're going to figure out how to do it. And in typical like founder mode, you're just going to like figure out how the heck to do it.
Yeah, and for us, it was like we always, I don't know how Agree first got into our minds, but it was like a brain worm. We couldn't get it out. And we're like, okay, like we have this idea for, it was almost the opposite of your problem where I was like, we have this idea for a name. Is there a better name? And we were just like debating for like a month, basically, like, is there any other like better name that we would want instead of Agree? And we decided no, like we love Agree. Like it's just such a good name.
Yeah. I worked for a company called Page once, and I could not remember the name of the company that I worked at because Page once was just such a like a weird combination of words. I could never remember the name. They're like, where do you work? And I was like, shit, it's something I just couldn't remember. Like Agree is easy to use. Anyway, enough about that. Did you go out and race around? What was the moment that you were like, all right, time for more money?
Yeah, so we incorporated the company in February of 2024, and like I mentioned, we raised the 3 million round led by Better Tomorrow Ventures, but also have, like a bunch of other great investors that participated. And so we launched the product in September of that year. So it sort of went like heads down, building, launched the product. And I think for us, like sort of the inflection point was just seeing how quickly the user growth took off, where like we launched it and like day one, I'm like, man, I hope just somebody uses this. Like we only have like, you put it out to the world, you don't know how people are going to react, but we hit like our internal goal was like, hey, let's get to 10,000 users, right? Because like it's a very viral product. Like your initial user base is like some of your most important users because they sort of like seed this network, right? And we ended up hitting 10,000 users like by December. So, only like a few months later. And we're like, okay, like we think we have something here. And so we went to market and also we just had VCs that were like pinging us trying to preempt the round because kind of a hilarious story. So many people have found us in different ways. Like I had a VC reach out to us because like he signed his like lease agreement on Agree and was like, hey, like what is this? And then like pinged us. Another VC reached out because a founder sent him docs to sign. I think it was like a safe doc to sign and it was through Agree. And he was like, wait, this is a great experience. Like, what is this? So we had like people reaching out to us. But my favorite is Tyler from Pelion. So like, he's based in Salt Lake City in Utah. He knows that I'm visiting Marty in New York and he's like, I'm flying out right now to meet you. This is like 2 days before Christmas. And so he comes out to New York and like, he built and led product over at Divvy, which sold to, Bill.com. And so sort of like understood things very well from the AP side and sort of like very naturally got the evolution to the AR side. And so, yeah, we went to market and like we ended up raising the round in like 2 weeks. I think we took like 100 investor meetings in 2 weeks. And then we had
Whoa.
like 50 more on the books and we're like, hey, we just need to stop, like, we're drawing the line here. And so, yeah, ended up raising 7.2, probably turned away at least another like 7 or 8 million in interest that wanted to come in, but we just didn't have space for them. So a very fortunate position to be in as founders. And I think like the only like reason like we're able to be in that space is just like the product is just like really taking off and being loved by a lot of people.
Yeah, it's so good. So what does this capital enable you to do? What does success look like over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think just better cross-pollination, right? Like, so we have the basic premises here. Like, we have like an amazing foundation where it's like, hey, if you need to send out a contract for signature, like, we've got you. If you need to send out an invoice for payment, we've got you. But the magical part is like when you combine the two, right? So, like, automatically creating and sending invoices, so that you don't have to manually go in and type in the info, basically automating the follow-up so you don't have to be the bad guy, like reminding your customer to pay. Again, we have these things, but just like getting better at the cross-pollination and expanding from here. I think like Act 2, Act 3, some of the things I start to get really interested in are like the CRO, CFO tooling, where we can basically look at the data across all your contracts and invoices and provide like analytics that just basically no other point provider would be able to provide, or even things down the line, that we get really excited about, like invoice factoring, where it's like being able to underwrite an invoice very efficiently, and things like escrow, where it's like, hey, if we know the terms of an agreement and two parties are trying to move money, we should be able to serve as like a neutral holder of funds. That's coming down the line. For now, I think it's just like contracting and invoicing, just getting better at sort of the cross-pollination there.
I mean, it's hard not to imagine all of the what if, or could you do this? Could you do this? So I appreciate your earlier comment about the judiciousness of saying yes, because one of the things that money does is it gives you the like sometimes false hope of like, let's just do a bunch of things now that we have all this money and we can do everything. It was like, I encourage you to just keep the quality and the design high, because once that starts slipping and you start lowering the bar, you guys have just built such an amazing product. It's so great. I'm so excited for you. For any finance leaders out there who are listening, who might be thinking about, what's your message to them?
Yeah, my message is just like, I'm here to make your life easier. I'm not here to like replace finance folks or like, like automate away the finance functions so that it no longer exists. Like this is very much like a humans plus software. Um, because like people on the finance side, it's like they don't want to be dealing with like the tedious process of like, sending invoices and then hounding people if they don't pay and trying to reconcile payments that, contracts that have been signed versus payments I'm waiting for, things like that. It just gets tedious. And like, I'm here to try and make your life easier. Basically not try and, replace any function that you might have. And we see different companies handling this differently. Like in some companies, like it's the salespeople that are sending the invoice and then like following up if the invoice doesn't get paid. In other companies, it's the finance function that's taking care of this. And either way, like we're here to basically like support both sides of that equation.
I was talking with a financier the other day, and they were very proud that they had come in and increased revenue. And they're like, "What did you do?" And I was like, "I just called all the people that hadn't paid us yet." And I was like, "Pay us right now." He's like, "You would be surprised at how often that just doesn't happen because you're so busy and like you're just trying to keep your head above water and following up." So, well, what a great use of technology.
Yeah, and so a fun little story. So I'm a repeat founder. My first company, we had a bunch of deals with like big automotive companies. So like Ford, General Motors, people like that. And these are like six-figure deals. And so for like a, seed stage company at the time, like it really meant the world. And so I sent out an invoice and it was net 60-day payment terms, which was standard. And this is like classic like first time founder mistake. I'm like, "Oh, like clearly I'm gonna have money in the bank probably on day 60." No, they all paid us 6 months late. And it took like me sending like a scary letter, like drafted by lawyers, basically to get them to pay on time. And everybody I've told that story to, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's very standard, for big companies." But I'm like, no, that's crazy. Like that's insane that like I had to be the bad guy, like and go and like follow up and be like, "Hey, like we had a deal, right?" And so we're just trying to automate as much of that from Agree as possible, where it's like just, automated reminders that are context aware. Right. So it's like, hey, we see all the context of the contract. So we can say things like, hey, per section 3, like, like we need to be paid, otherwise, XYZ thing. And in a way that feels more natural and it isn't just like a invoice due email that happens, just every week.
Yeah. I'm waiting for you to put the annoying like tip jar of like this interest accruing calculator, like you're overdue, here's your interest accrual, like just ping you with your personalized live, like the interest thing like they have in Union Square in New York, like the accruing interest debt that we're going into. All right. So then like, to flip it over, because we also have quite a few founders that listen here, like for founders that are building in obviously super sexy industries like accounting and payments and invoicing, what advice do you have for them on how to think about building a product that just really resonates with your customer?
Oh man, I feel like just talk to your users is like I know that advice has been given a million times, but I will be the million and first time. You really just learn so much by just having empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're trying to build for. Oftentimes founders are that person. Like they see the problem and so they go and decide to fix the problem themselves. But just hearing it from your user, just talk to them, hear what features that they are wanting to build. Another thing I've started doing recently, I've started using Granola for all of my product demos. And I've been just so impressed with this because I dump everything into a product demos folder and then I share that folder with the rest of my team. And so this is a way of like me like sharing the insights that I'm getting from users like in real time with the rest of my team in a way that they can like prompt that folder. So I'm gonna sing Granola's love because I think this is like another product that just like has done a great job of, creating these sort of delightful moments. But
How do you actually stay focused on the user? Like it's easy said, it's easy advice to hear, it's easy advice to
yeah.
give. I think as founders, we just can get distracted with so many things. How do you personally keep yourself sort of focused on the user?
Set up the calls, like my calendar today, like we're recording this, like I had like 3 or 4 demos before this and I have 3 or 4 demos after this, and that is like a typical day for me. So like there's hardly a day that goes by where I'm not talking to somebody and understanding and getting them onto the platform and like understanding their user needs. So I would say just like make it a priority. Like one of your founders should always, like ideally both, but like one of your founders should always be talking to users. Like that should never go away. Whether that's online, whether that's, face to face in a Zoom call, like whatever it is, just like prioritize it. It's a non-negotiable.
Yeah, 40,000 customers and still doing demo calls all day, every day. That's amazing. Well, hats off to you. That's great. And not surprising. Like your product shows it. All right, last question. What's one thing that you believe about the future of finance that you think others don't appreciate?
Yeah, always a hard question to answer, but I would say my view on this is that like it's about humans plus software. It's not about like AI taking your job or removing things. And so I believe that like we're in a period right now where it's like we've had these point solutions that by and large don't talk to each other, and like companies have had basically thrown humans at the problem to solve this. And I think that's always going to be true to a certain extent, but like there's just things that software does really well and there's things that humans do really well too. And so I just think processes are going to get a lot more streamlined as time goes on, and our mission at Agree is basically just to make that easier for the folks that are in the driver's seat, not to take away the driver or do self-driving. It's just make things easier for the humans leading finance functions, at a company.
That's awesome. Well, thank you to you and the team for building this. It is a delightful product. People can learn more at agree.com. Or if you happen to be an accounting firm listening and you just want to experience it firsthand, come sign up at Puzzle and we will send you an Agree right off the bat. It's super easy. Just kidding. This is great. Will, this was super fun. Congrats on everything. Congrats on the raise. Congrats on the traction. And keep it up. We're a happy customer and I love it.
Thanks so much, Sasha.
Thanks for listening to Tech Finance with Puzzle and Turpentine. If you got value from this episode, please share it with anybody building or funding the future of technology. And please leave us a review wherever you're listening and tell me about what you want to hear more of. If you're looking for accounting software you'll actually love to power your company, check out puzzle.io, the modern accounting platform for the AI era. Tech Finance is part of Turpentine, the awesome podcast network behind Econ 102 with Noah Smith, Turpentine VC, Complex Systems with Patrick McKenzie, and so many more.